Welcome to my channel. My name is Medic Muffin. Those of you in the Ad Mortem community will come to know me as the Polax. Why the Ad Mortem community? Because today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to go over and analyze the Ad Mortem trailer that just dropped a few days ago and try to see what's what, talk about the things I find interesting, etc. I do know I'm a bit late on this, and a ton of much bigger content creators than myself have already covered it, but really I just want to do this, so I'm gonna do it. Anyways, there's not really much else to say about this. I'm just going to take a look at the trailer, and then I'll, take a second look and sort of break down what I see, what I find interesting, what maybe looks bad, all that sort of stuff. So, let's get right into it.
Rise, vessel. Rise.
And that is a fantastic first run of the trailer. We are just going to quickly jump right back in, and I'm going to start breaking everything down point by point because I definitely saw a lot of stuff on this trailer that's very interesting. So I really like the weight of the combat here. Like the hits feel really meaty and impactful. There's a lot of heft to it. I really like how it looks. Capes, we finally get capes. It's been a long time request for games in this genre. Now there's a few things I want to go over here, so I'm going to go ahead and slow this down. Now, I managed to catch it perfectly, actually, because it's this little jab with the shield that he does, right? So he blocks, and then he jabs. Now, I like this because in Chivalry 2, jabs have a pretty specific problem. They're kind of too good. And the reason that they're kind of too good is that they're both very fast, and they don't have a lot of animation, right? They don't have like a lot of distinct wind up. They kind of just snap forward and hit you. So I like this because it's very much a jab, but this windup is very distinct, right? I don't think you'll ever see, I don't think you'll ever see him holding his shield in this position except to punch you in the face with it. Um, and it's very nice, and it looks like it's not as fast as Chivalry either. It's still decently fast, but it's not crazy. Like that's a decent speed. But that, it kind of just comes back to everything I just said about Chivalry 2's jab with this. Like, this is a little bit nutty to me. Now, potentially, I think, maybe, this might be the windup to that jab, right? Because his hand is off of his sword. So that's kind of my hope. I would really need to see the other perspective. I would need to see this guy's perspective of what this jab looks like coming in. But I'm hoping this like plays out as an animation of sort of cocking your fist back a little bit, just to make it distinctive and sort of, you know, there's a fine line between too much telegraphing and like having a certain amount of readability in the game. But I think something like this should have, a degree of telegraphing that's like, hey, a jab is coming. And this might be that. But it might not be. And if it's not, it's kind of a problem because this really just snaps forward. And it seems very fast. It seems faster than the shield jab. So I don't know. I'm not going to speculate too much. This is still pre-alpha, so all of this is subject to change. And it's really hard to say anything definitive without seeing like the actual third-person animation for it. But it does concern me just a little bit. This is a classic Mordhau Chivalry 1 style body dodge, which I really like. In those games, you can control your character's player model much more freely because when you look down, you kind of lean forward and you duck under a little bit. When you look up, you lean back, you can create a little bit of extra space. You can make attacks whiff that might not have whiffed. And both of these things you can combine with crouching, you can combine with turning your body left to right, you can combine with emoting. This game will probably have emoting as it is heavily inspired by Mordhau and Chivalry, both of which had emoting. But I just think this is really cool. It's more skill expressive, it's more satisfying, it's cooler. It's just better. Like Chivalry 2 uses a canned like matrix lean back type animation. And it has a specific input, and it's really kind of restrictive for what you can do with body dodging in the game. And to me at least, I always thought it was a little bit disappointing. So it's really cool to see that this is making a comeback. Now this is interesting. I believe this is a class ability. And something to make note of is this is a faction-based game. There are 2 factions, and the classes between the factions have similar roles, but they are not 100% identical. So there is a counterpart to this shield character, who we'll see a little bit later with the Warhammer. And I'm going to assume that he can't do this. I assume this move is unique to this character. Because we will see this a little bit later in the trailer. And he does, like, he lowers his shield and he gets, like, a held block for a little bit. And he sort of does, like, a bull rush. And then he does this cool backhand slap. And I'm going to wager that that is not something the other shield class can do. Like, I assume he'll have his own ability that is a different thing. Obviously, big focus on dueling. It is a very competitively minded game. Now, the guns, I'm going to give the devs the benefit of the doubt. They are very experienced veterans of Chivalry 1 and Mordhau. Certainly much better than I ever was at either of those games. So they are aware of how shitty ranged gameplay can feel in these games. It is a melee slasher, and so historically there's been a lot of animosity with archers and any other sort of ranged class, just like being able to throw weapons or designated throwing weapons in particular. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, like I said, until they give me a reason not to. So I assume they have something in mind to balance this out. My best guess would be it's a class ability with a set wind up, release, and recovery. So it would hopefully just be like a learn the timing type of thing. And then it's up to the guy with the gun, right, to figure out how to slip that in effectively. Which in my opinion is how it should be. But I won't speculate too much. There's really just not enough information about it, but that would be my guess. So this is the Warhammer shield guy that we just saw here. Now this is the same exact move, and I think it's a little bit of a better view. I'm going to slow this down again. Because I think this is all one thing. Like, I think one input is doing these three things, where he lowers his shield, right? And you can already see he's kind of like moving forward. He's running, right? And he's very close to this guy as it is. So there's not going to be a huge running animation. But I do think this is like the start of like a, pushing forward with his shield. And the shield is going to block that weapon attack. And then he's going to immediately throw that same backhand move that we saw. So I am really strongly convinced that this is like a character ability. And that the Warhammer shield guy will not be able to do this. Like, I assume he will have his own unique character ability that does something different. And I would also assume it still involves the shield somehow. Now, this, again, same thing. I think this is a character ability. And I think it raises a few questions. Now, my assumption would be that the abilities are all set. Like I said, the one input does the whole thing with like the shield charge and the backhand bash. I think this is the same thing. I think one input does this wind up and it lasts a certain amount of time and then it releases into this big swing. Now, what I find particularly interesting about this is that they're making a very clear show of cleaving through 4 people. Now, the reason this is interesting is because in Chivalry 2 or Mordhau, this is nothing special. You can hit 4 people in one swing, with any weapon. Well, any weapon that's long enough to actually do that. Like, as many people as you can squeeze into the arc of your swing, you can hit them all. You can hit 20 people, right, if you can fit them all in there. So I think Cleave in this game is going to be something of a actual weapon stat, right? I'm not sure about Chivalry 1, but in Mordhau and Chivalry 2, Cleave is sort of a binary thing. Your weapon either cleaves or it hit stops, right? Blunt weapons hit stop, and some exceptions apply in the case of Chivalry, but blunt weapons hit stop, bladed weapons cleave, right? I think this is indicating that Cleave is not binary anymore, right? Some weapons may be able to cleave through one person, hit stop on a second person. Some may be able to cleave through 2, hit stop on a third. The numbers are arbitrary, but I think this attack is specifically intended to, enhance the amount of cleave that you have, right? I think this is showcasing that chopping through 4 people like this is not something that you can naturally do, right, with the weapon. And again, important to remember, this is all speculation. Nothing is confirmed. We really don't have any details at all about the combat system. So we're really just taking what we see and speculating. And I just want to point out again that same thing, that pistol shot looks like a canned, like set timed animation. Like, I think that's about the timing. It's always going to happen on that timing, would be my guess. Again, the aesthetics of this game just look absolutely phenomenal. Dark fantasy was such a cool way to go for the genre.
Rise.
The dungeon crawling is interesting in the dark. I do think that's something they have to sort of moderate, because I could really easily see, like, overstaying its welcome. You know, it's very hard to see. It looks like parts of it are probably really cramped. You know, could be really cool. I just don't want to see it overused. This also is very cool. This is very reminiscent of, like, Chaos Wastes in Vermintide. So I would assume that, just like with Chaos Wastes, these little shrines, these little, you know, altars, whatever you want to call them, I'd assume they give you various buffs. You know, you could maybe potentially swap out your weapons, like pick up a new weapon. You could potentially upgrade the weapon that you're holding already. You know, you could potentially get various, you know, ways to buff your character in some way. You know, there's a billion and one ways they could do it, but it's nice to see that there's more to the PvE than just, you know, farm 10,000 NPC bots for 4 hours. Now, this is something I also kind of want to get into the weeds about and do some speculating on. I think this pommel bash with the rapier, I might be crazy. I don't think this is like a jab animation. I don't think it's like a unique attack. I think what happened was he was winding up for a swing, right? A regular left to right slash. And what happened was that as he was in windup, he simply got too close, right? And because of how this was all lined up, right? So maybe they have some sort of system to, like, detect when your hand is lined up with the enemy right at the release phase, right? So this could be an interesting way to, like, enforce a sense of spacing, right? Because if you are trying to swing your actual sword like your blade, you know, presumably that would do a whole lot more damage than, like, the pommel bash, right? Like, that does a hit stun, and I assume it does a little bit of damage, maybe on par with a jab, but, you know, that's not ideal if what you wanted to do was swing a full damage slash, right? And this could be a way to also sort of deal with, like, frame 1 excels, and just, like, the speed of weapons in general, right? And just lining them up so that they hit as soon as the game will physically allow, because this has been a problem in Chivalry and in Mordhau. And this could be an interesting way of sort of dealing with that, where you have to leave yourself some room to actually get your blade out swinging. Otherwise, you get a, you know, you get a hit, but it's a much lower damage attack than you wanted. Again, I could be crazy, pure speculation. This could be an entirely separate mechanic of its own. This could just be an alternating jab animation or something else. But my speculation is that it's like it's like their form of early release almost. First of all, awesome sound design. Like, the sound of that was fucking gnarly. I love it. Big thing here, obviously, big enemy, boss type, or mini boss type, maybe. Curious to see how they will handle this. I would very much like these guys not to be just, you know, they do shit ton of damage and they have a shit ton of health and are otherwise normal. That's really boring. but you also don't need anything too crazy, right? Like, you don't need fucking Destiny 2 raid boss mechanics to deal with this guy. So I'll be curious to see how they sort of strike the balance with that, if indeed they do strike a balance with it. And wrapping up, they do have a Discord. They post all their stuff there, the trailers there, all the information that they have is there. They will be starting a Kickstarter soon. It will be announced there. If you really want to keep up with news on the game, that is the place to be. You can also see here it is a Steam release, so that is PC exclusive for now. So sorry to the console bros. They have gone on record stating they don't plan for a console release, but Mortau said the same thing for years and years, and right up until they actually announced a console release. So never give up hope. Maybe somewhere down the line it might possibly happen. Especially if the game is a smash hit, makes a shit ton of money, the possibilities are endless. But I guess that will about wrap us up here. They do have a website if you want to read some of the lore of the setting that the game takes place in. They have some write ups for some of the various classes, and, anything that's not in the trailer or on the Discord is on their website. So I'll keep an eye out for more information. I think the game looks very, very good, very polished for a pre alpha, and I'm very excited to find out more. So until next time, I will catch you all on the flip side.